Right. Ready? As much as you can be? You good? Check. All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:05. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record reflect that all council members are present.
Thank you. There is no report out on closed session. Any conflict of interest declarations? Seeing none. Any changes or deletions to the agenda, David?
No changes, Mayor.
Thank you. Public comment. Any person wishing to speak on an item not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. 3 minutes are typically allotted to each speaker. Do you have anyone in our audience that would like to make a public comment on an item not on the agenda? I see you looking, Alyssa.
Hello. I'm Alyssa Morash, the Executive Director of the Historical Society. We sent a letter to the City Manager and Council on behalf of the Cloverdale Historical Society and the United Church of Cloverdale, and that letter is in your packet tonight. If I may, I'd like to review the highlights of the letter with you. In the letter, we state that the Cloverdale Historical Society and the United Church of Cloverdale have joined forces to explore avenues for the preservation and repurposing of the historic church property located at 439 North Cloverdale Boulevard. And the letter also states that due to changing times, the congregation will cease being a fully functional congregation within the next 12 to 24 months. The historical significance of the church to the city of Cloverdale is profound. It was built in 1869, and it stands as the earliest known church building in Cloverdale. In fact, it was built on land donated by James Kleiser, who is our town's founder. The current sanctuary was added to the existing structure in 1907. It includes a beautiful Wally pipe organ, which we believe is the only one of its kind in the United States. Many of us here refer to that church as the Ivy Church, and that ivy was planted by E.A. Cooley in 1909. If you've been to the church, you know about the beautiful stained glass windows, and I think you'd agree that the church stands as a testament to the city's architectural and cultural heritage. Its status as a historical edifice is really indisputable. The congregation is willing to gift the property under the right conditions, the nature of which were outlined in our letter. The vision for the property encompasses a multifaceted approach that would serve a diverse community and would include safeguarding the church's legacy and the cherished Wally pipe organ. This would include providing support to the less fortunate, offering a spiritual sanctuary, and furnishing a venue for choral and musical events. The property today encompasses the sanctuary, the historic Wally pipe organ, fellowship hall, education building, certified kitchen, and office space. So why did we send you this letter? This is an invitation to work together. We believe City Council plays a significant role in the evolution of this historic property, and that evolution will be affected by elected officials in the broader community. We have initiated and we're assembling an advisory committee that we hope will comprise community stakeholders, including City Council members, city staff, interested residents, and individuals with expertise in law, finance, and preservation. We really need a think tank. Our collective challenge as a community is to discern the optimal utilization of the property and devise a synchronized timeline mindful of the church's financial circumstances. There's more to the letter. I'm sure you'll read it when you get a chance. It was signed by myself, Robert Redner, who's the president and board of directors of the Cloverdale Historical Society, Greg Rogers, who's the director of the Cloverdale Historical Society, and from the United Church of Cloverdale, Reverend Jen Collins, Polly Lyle, Robert Tim, Richard Warner, and from the community, Ron Pavelka. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alyssa. Is there anyone else like to make a public comment? Seeing none, we'll move forward. We have some written communications attached to our agenda packet. Next, we're moving into proclamations and recognitions. Under E1, we have Disability Pride Month. Is there anyone that would like to read it? Seeing none, I will. A proclamation of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale proclaiming July 2024 as Disability Pride Month. Whereas Disability Pride Month is celebrated nationally in the month of July and is an opportunity to honor the history, achievements, experiences, and struggles of the disability community. And whereas this month marks the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, landmark legislation that broke down barriers to inclusion in society, and whereas it is important to take the time this month to reflect on the disability rights movement and the progress that has been made. And whereas the City of Cloverdale recognizes that one of its greatest strengths is the diversity of its people and believes in the dignity of all disabled individuals, supporting equity and ensuring that acts of discrimination and hatred will not be tolerated. Whereas disabled individuals contribute to our community's success and strength in a great number of immeasurable ways. And whereas disabled individuals continue to face discrimination for something out of their control and for being who they are, continue to be a target of violence and harassment, and continue to persist through the efforts of the disabled community and the support of community agencies, businesses, and individual allies. Whereas discrimination on the basis of disability is often compounded with discrimination based on race, sexual orientation, and gender identity, immigration status, religion, and age, among others. And whereas the City of Cloverdale strives to promote inclusivity and lead in creating a community based on disability equity through its actions, laws, employees, and commissions. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Mayor Lands, and the City Council of the City of Cloverdale do hereby proclaim July 2024 as Disability Pride Month in Cloverdale and invites all to join in celebrating the persistence and achievements of the disabled community. Dated July 24th, 2024, so ordered myself. Tonight we have some representatives from the school district. We have Marcy and Jeremy and the Superintendent Glenn Sinisteraro who are here. To receive this, I would ask if any of you would like to come forward and say a little something. Jeremy, Marcy, or any of your students, anybody that wants to come forward? Miguel, it's good that you're getting up and coming up here.
All right. Sorry, I wasn't prepared to do a speech tonight. But yes, my name is Jeremy Wilson. I'm an extensive supports needs education specialist at Cloverdale High School. So I teach special ed. So on behalf of myself, Cloverdale Unified School District, my students, my fellow coworkers, and just the City of Cloverdale, we would like to thank Mayor Lands and the City Council for this proclamation. It means a lot to all of us to be fully accepting of our disabled population, and it's another reason why I love living in Cloverdale. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Would anybody like to say anything?
Yeah, say hi. You don't have to. Just say hello and say thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Miguel.
Say
Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Welcome, bud.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone want to say anything? Do you guys mind if we come up there and take a picture? Yeah, that'd be great. We'll meet you guys up top instead of, if it's okay.
Resident photographer.
Lobby's good. That was a good one.
I've actually got to spend a lot of time with that group, and they're so much fun, such a kick. And they came to City Hall last week, and we did a tour and a question and answer period, and I just couldn't wait for this. So it means a lot that the families came down here with everyone, so it's great to see. So thank you, everyone. All right, moving on to E2, National Night Out. Is there anyone that would like to read this one? Seeing none, I will. Proclamation of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale proclaiming August 6th, 2024 as National Night Out. Whereas seeing a need to involve both community watch groups and community members in neighborhood safety efforts, the National Association of Town Watch started National Night Out. Whereas National Night Out began in August of 1984 through an already established network of law enforcement agencies, neighborhood watch groups, civic groups, state and regional crime prevention associations, and volunteers across the nation. Whereas Starbucks, ADT, 7-Eleven, CARES Foundation, Swank Motion Pictures, Associate, and LEAD are sponsoring its 41st annual nationwide crime, drug, and violence prevention program on August 6th, 2024, entitled National Night Out. And whereas the 41st, not 41st, check that one, let's type a typo. The 41st Annual Night Out provides a unique opportunity for citizens of Cloverdale to join forces with thousands of communities across the state of California in promoting cooperative police, community, crime, and drug prevention efforts. And whereas the National Night Out event is a year-long community building campaign designed to heighten crime prevention awareness, generate support and partisan in local anti-crime programs, strengthen neighborhood spirit and police community partnerships, and send a message to criminals to let them know that neighborhoods are organized and are fighting back. Whereas local citizens play a vital role in assisting police agencies through joint crime, drug, and violence prevention efforts. Whereas police community partnerships, neighborhood safety, awareness, and cooperation are important themes of the National Night Out program. Whereas the Cloverdale Police Department has continued their commitment to excellence in service and to working together with the community to keep them safe. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Todd Lands, the mayor of the city of Cloverdale, do hereby recognize on behalf of the Cloverdale City Council, August 6th, 2024 as National Night Out in Cloverdale, and encourages all members of the community to continue to help make our community a safer and more enjoyable place to live, work, and play, dated July 24th, 2024, so ordered myself. Chief, you're here as the recipient. Do you have anything that you would like to say? Would you like a microphone?
So August 6th, it'll be August 6th, 6 p.m. To 9 p.m. We're going to have trike races for kids and adults. We have carnival games. We have the Druids give us a bunch of stuff to give out as carnival prizes. The POA donated over $1,000 in raffle prizes. We'll have probably up to $3,000 in raffle prizes to give away just from the businesses in the community, giving gift certificates and just other things to give out. We'll have obviously Star Wars characters there because I'm a Star Wars fan that you can meet and talk to, take pictures with. The Skull Crusher monster truck will be there for the kids. The driver, Shane, he'll be signing autographs for the kids and stuff. Ferguson will make another appearance there. Chief Ferguson, he'll be conducting the raffle and it's free for everybody to come out. Lions Club will be cooking hot dogs for everybody. And the officers and dispatchers will be out there meeting and greeting and talking with folks, and they can mingle with the police department and kind of get to know us a little bit. It's a really good time, and this started with Chief Kramer. He never was able to experience it, but when he really wanted us to do it the one year, just before he passed, and so we put it on, and we've done it ever since, and it's been growing ever since. It's a really fun event, and I really enjoy it. Our employees really enjoy it. We have a rib-off just before the event to kind of kick it off. We have a little competition with the fire and ambulance and ourselves. I came in second last year. But we love it. It's really fun, and we enjoy meeting everybody and talking with folks and just kind of mingling with people. And you know, everything is free, face painting, and just, you know, other vendors offer their services for free or sometimes at a really reduced rate. So it's a fun event. I left some flyers out front. I hope you guys can join us.
Chief, do you want to take this as a time to talk about anything else going on in the community right now, or you want to save that for later or something? Or
Which thing? We're talking about our case. I have a few things going, I've just said.
reading this proclamation, how
Yeah.
community awareness, community help
Yeah, so.
shows where we're at with a lot of the.
So I'm sure everybody heard that recently we made an arrest in the Sarah Gear murder from 1982. Really, that culminated from Chief Ferguson opening the case up in 2021. When I took over, they were just starting to get into the genealogy aspect of it. I gave them the go-ahead, let's get it done, and let's get this case moved forward. We developed a suspect, obviously. We did an operation on Monday, and took him into custody in Willows, and then booked him in jail here for a number of counts, including murder. He just had his arraignment today. I was present. And it's good to bring closure to the surviving uncle was there for Sarah. Her parents had passed already. He was very grateful in bringing closure, and to bring closure to the community regarding this case is I didn't do anything. I just kind of told him to go get it done. So it's huge for us. And working with, the private investigator, Kevin Klein, who really led the investigation, the FBI, the Glenn County Sheriff's Office, DOJ, Siri Labs, the District Attorney's Office. Sometimes we kind of get guarded with in law enforcement, no, this is our investigation. And to bring other people and to collaborate. It was really a collaboration in getting this job done for the community is really good to see and really good to experience. And I'm glad we can get it done. And it's in the DA's hands now, and just grateful.
As your counsel and a longtime community member, we're all grateful. The relentless pursuit to give justice. This is a case of a lifetime, and it took, I couldn't even tell you, dozens of people involved in this or more. Officers from 1982, the witnesses from back then. I've had a lot of people contacting me and saying, I was at her house waiting for her. I was the officer doing the interviews. All these things that were going on back in 1982, to be able to preserve enough evidence and have the knowledge to just do that no matter what it was, to be able to get to where we are right now, it's amazing. And for you guys to not let up, just bulldog through it and get the right person instead of the person that people thought it was, and things like that, and rumor mills and all that goes on. You guys did it right, and no stone unturned.
Yeah, just to kind of put technology into perspective, in '82 DNA wasn't a thing. It really didn't hit. Law enforcement didn't start using it until about '86, and genealogy started 96-ish, somewhere around there. So the DNA is, it's only going to get better in helping us solve crime. So
behalf of your community, thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, you want a picture or you just want this? I figured.
Mayor, if I can, just of course, I want to add to your comments about the exemplary work of our chief. I know there were moments in time when there was questions whether we were going to continue to move forward with this case, but they persevered, and obviously the results are clear. But also I want to acknowledge, and I think it's important to acknowledge the council. It took some additional resources and additional funding in our in the police department to be able to undertake this significant work, and council saw the significance of performing that work. Obviously there's a big question mark whether it would be successful or not, but here we are. We find ourselves with being able to finally, hopefully, put someone behind bars that should be behind bars for a long time. But council ultimately supported the decision, provided the necessary funding for us to get that work done, to have our police department do the work. So I think it goes without saying that the council also showed some leadership on this issue, and it provided the foundation for our police department to do the work they do. And so I think just acknowledging the work of the council and the community as well, and their support of our police department getting this case resolved. It's pretty amazing, and I just want to acknowledge Chief again, and our former chief. I know remember when he came into my office and said, this is something we want to do, and I said, hey, as long as we get support council gave that green light, and here's the results. So ultimately your leadership with the chief's determination, resulted in what was identified as the person that was put behind bars. So good work to council. So thank you.
Yeah, just to reiterate on how you guys participated when you guys approved the detective's position. She was instrumental in helping Kevin Klein on the work on our side when she took over that role. It's just, it's huge, the amount of work she did on that case. Great experience for her future career, and in the area of being a detective. It couldn't have done that without you. Kevin Klein would have been on his own pretty much had we not been hired a detective. So,
Don't forget us when True Crime TV calls you and wants to make an episode. Because this is the number one.
I talked to KQED already.
I'm telling. Never mind.
Yeah.
So thank you again. We could do this all night. All right, we'll move on. We won't do it all night. We'll move on to the consent calendar. All items under the consent calendar will be considered together by one action of the City Council unless any council member or member of the public requests that an item be removed and considered separately. Is there anything the council would like to pull? Seeing none, is there any items on the consent calendar that anyone would like to pull from the audience? Seeing none.
Motion to approve.
Moved to approve by the Vice Mayor. Second by Councilmember Bagby.
Thank you. Councilmember Bagby?
Aye.
Councilmember Morgenstern?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolter? Aye. Vice Mayor Wheeler? Aye. Mayor Lance?
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Move on to H, public hearings. H1, introduction and first reading of an ordinance amending sections of the Cloverdale Municipal Code in order to more clearly define the off-street parking standards for recreational vehicles in residential areas. David or Kevin, who wants to head this?
Mayor, council members, this is the public hearing for a proposed zoning ordinance amendment regarding the parking of RVs on private property. In my opinion, these amendments clarify and simplify the rules that we have in place for folks in town for parking RVs. And just a little background, Planning Commission had 2 hearings on this. We had a lot of input from the public, and they really deliberated for a long time. In fact, Chief Parker attended one of those meetings because there was questions about RVs parked on public streets, so we kind of clarified that. So just so you know, that a lot of work went into these recommendations. Probably one of the big things was there was a requirement for screening of RVs prior to this amendment and what's currently in the code. There was a lot of discussion of that. Is that really feasible in the front? I mean, for one thing, the zoning only allows a 3-foot fence in the front, so we kind of came to the conclusion at the Planning Commission, it's really difficult to provide any kind of screening that's meaningful, and so that has been eliminated. One of the things the Planning Commission did recognize that there's, two types of RVs. Most people have a nice RV parked neatly on their property, but there's also ones that are more of a code enforcement, parked on the lawn, are in disrepair. So part of the amendment defined where it could be parked in the front and had to be on an all-weather surface. There's some definitions added to that. Furthermore, there's another provision that it must be in operating condition and must be in good condition. So those are really the two amendments. We eliminated the screening. We added the language about where it could be parked. And so it's pretty simple. I think it will provide more clarity for code enforcement going forward. And we presented to the Planning Commission lots of pictures of RVs throughout town. And most of those are good, some were not. But I think if this amendment gets adopted, it's going to give us the ability to go after those ones with a little more teeth, that the ones that are parked on the lawn and in disrepair. Again, there was a lot of public input. We had 2 public hearings at the Planning Commission, and this is the result of that. So I'm recommending that we introduce this ordinance tonight.
Great. All right, you want to do the public hearing portion first? Or do anyone have any comments from the council? Seeing none here, I'll open up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a public comment regarding this?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City staff. I recognize that a whole lot, my name is Bob Cox, Cloverdale resident. I know there has been a lot of discussion over how to deal with RVs in the front yard and such, and I appreciate all the work that the Planning Commission went through. And I'm looking at the new wording where it has within the front yard, they need to have improved hardscape in order to prevent it from being parked on lawns and dirt and that sort of thing. I appreciate that, but I think there's one little step further, and that is to prevent those that want to take advantage of this and just have hardscape all the way across the front yard and have nothing but RVs obliterating the front of the house. So I would suggest that possibly a percentage of the front yard, whether it be 25% or 30% or no more than, be added to this in order to maintain some sort of semblance of a neighborhood look to the property and for the rest of the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. Go around. Councilmember Bagby, do you have anything you want to add or?
I have a question for Kevin. In any of the deliberations, was there any discussion of language that make sure that we're limiting it to single-family homes, or one unit per unit, anything like that?
There was discussion of the single-family home aspect, but ultimately they didn't say it was limited to single-family homes or R1 zoning, because there are single-family homes in other zones, and that was kind of the conversation. There was no discussion that I recall about limiting one or the number of RVs per home. I don't think we got into that. Yeah.
That would take care of that concern if it were limited to one per, family's designated parking area. Just a suggestion, not necessary, but that might take care of that issue.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Mr. Cox brought up a good point that we somehow limit the, I'll take it one step further, limit the number of RVs that are parked on that lawn and the percentage of cement that could be put on that front lawn, cement, asphalt, gravel, whatever, so that we don't encourage multiple units being parked there. I don't know how my colleagues feel about that, but I think that's something we should probably look at adding.
I think it would be a good idea to add that, so, not one house has like 3 or 4 RVs in front of it.
Bob, thank you very much, and I agree with you on that, I do see people, there's some nice RVs, but then there's also people taking advantage of it, and all of a sudden you see a beautiful home with nothing but hardscape and RVs, but it does draw down the neighborhood, so thank you, I agree. I also want to thank Kevin. Good job on running that through. I know we talked about the screening and all that. That was almost an impossible thing to do. Some of these RVs are 16, 18 feet tall, so that would throw you out of whack on some other code type stuff too. But thank you, Kevin, for doing that. But yeah, I think we need to add that also before we do this. I think that'd be a good idea to add it in a certain percentage for yard to maintain some type of home feel to it or neighborhood feel to it.
One more thought on this. Is there a way to talk about, you talk about the designation of where it could be or how much area? I would like to see it to where they're like perpendicular with a garage or something along those lines where you don't have it to where they're parked across the whole front yard of a house. I don't know how we word that, but that's what we see a few in town that would be violating this, but if they put in the hardscape, they wouldn't be. But didn't you have a time frame if they were plugged in and things like that as well on this? So it kind of eliminates a lot of it if they're plugged in, they couldn't be there. However, if they're not, they could be just parked in the front yard. Anyone disagree with that in any way?
Well, I
Have
think
a better idea of way to word it?
the only thing on a lot of these newer RVs, if you're plugged in, you're charging your batteries.
Right. Well, there's a thing in here for them to be able to do it, but it's only for a time frame. You can't just like always be completely hooked up to
Right, and I walked around, and did a few things in our neighborhood and around town and saw there was some claims that people were, living in these things, at least the ones that I looked at, they were being charged. There was no sewer hooked up. There was obviously no dump for it, and people were really taking care of their RVs. But, and the guys that do have them plugged in for a long period of time, I don't remember the period in this, but they're really good. I see the folks have their, all the cords are lined up, they're in a neighborhood, they're rolled up, they're out of the way, they're not spread all over. So, I think that if you do have one of these newer RVs and you do have it and you're taking care of it and have, and you have it plugged in to charge, I think that should be allowed. And I don't know if that, I'm just in disagreement. I think the time frame shouldn't be there on that. I think that you should be allowed to plug it in. If and you're in compliance with the hardscape and it's, perpendicular or whatever, and it looks good and you've got it plugged in, so be it. You're not doing anything. So I just disagree if there's a time frame for plug-in. I think we ought to remove that, my opinion personally.
Mayor, where is that? I'm trying to.
Oh, it's not in there? Oh, it didn't make,
It's not
I was
in there.
wrong on that.
Yeah, I think we might be referring to the emergency action council took after the fires for folks to be able to plug their RVs in as a form of emergency housing for friends and family. So I don't think that that's an issue. I think that the general rules, Chief, is about 72 hours or maximum for parking, and so that would hold true. I think that we're covered on that. If we're going to send this back, I guess my only recommendation is that in R1, at least, we have some older homes, we have some more recently constructed homes, and the footprints are all different, so a ratio is really difficult to arrive at. I think I'd just ask our planning director to, maybe come up with especially considering the situations in R1, just sort of the best requirements to make sure that we are minimizing pavement impacts, but being able to kind of do a best case scenario for maybe the largest RVs out there too. So that's just some input that I'd like to see when it comes back.
So I heard we have to come up with a percentage of front yard hardscape that we think is acceptable.
My concern is that I think that there are some small homes on really big lots and big lots with also large homes. So
Percentage.
the percentage is,
Okay.
I think it might be difficult, but maybe just some guidelines on that, but not a hard and fast, must be 10%, must be 12%, must be 20%. Because I think that when you're talking about, we have varying lot sizes, varying setbacks depending on the generation of the housing, and maybe some other, in an ADU, a detached garage, you start, when you're talking about the available square footage outside of the buildings, it just varies so much depending on kind of the age and the era of the neighborhood. So maybe just kind of think about what a good rule of thumb would be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, go ahead. It could be tied to the amount of frontage they have, some kind of formula. I'll look.
And we can also, you can also figure out the driveway width needed for that and exclude that, and then say the rest of the front yard, you can only do X amount.
I'm just thinking about my neighborhood, and I think actually we're R2, so we wouldn't necessarily fall into this, but we have tandem parking, and we have, pretty old homes where the parking was originally for the horse and carriage, not for cars and RVs. So I just think that, just because of the varying nature of our housing stock, a hard and fast ratio might be difficult. So, if you could come back with a recommendation that gets us all what we're after, which is just a sensible, that, one RV per home, a common sense guidelines. It's really easy for the residents to understand, and it's really easy for the code enforcement officer to take care of for us.
Yeah, so front yard percentage, perpendicular, and limit, is there consensus for limiting it to one?
I
think one, yeah.
I'll flat E5 on that.
So we will need, we had a public hearing notice for this, so if we could have a motion to continue this item to August 14th, we can avoid having to renotice.
So moved.
There we go. Let me offer it to the public one more time, just because we went through a lot.
And any additional input after that would be really, really welcome and valuable.
If anyone has anything else they want to add to this, thank you, Bob, on your comment. That is big. Please come forward.
Dan Wilson, Cloverdale citizen. And first, let me say thank you for following through with this. If you recall, back in March, I was the one that raised the issue and in the planning committee, and really applaud the city's efforts and listening to all the perspectives. You overcame a hurdle that I didn't think was possible. I asked for the ordinance to go away, and I think with what you proposed finds that sweet spot middle ground. I'm going to add a couple more things. First is with regard to hookups. Vice Mayor Wheeler was absolutely right. When you store an RV, a premium spot allows for electrical hookups. It maintains the battery. It's just good maintenance of it. Sewer hookups, you don't want that. Nobody wants that in their front yard. It's a mess. All right, so get rid of that. The other thing is I can understand my neighbor's issue about a portion of the property being occupied by an RV. I think you guys, when it goes to the planning committee, it'll be a sweet spot, but right now I propose a majority. Don't go over the majority of the front yard with an RV. And I'm not sure if I understood this correctly, but I'll just say this too, is generally speaking, the ideal parking situation is parallel to the lot, not perpendicular, right? Because if you're perpendicular, then you're blocking the entire house in a street view. So,
correct.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah.
And that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Anything else? Awesome. Anyone want to make a comment on his comment? I think we're good.
Done.
All right, when you're ready, Mike.
Thank you. We had a motion by Councilmember Bagby, seconded by Vice Mayor Wheeler to continue the item to a date certain of August 14th, 2024. Just wanted to clarify that for the record before the vote. Councilmember Bagby? Councilmember Morgenstern?
Aye.
Councilmember Walter?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wheeler?
Aye.
Mayor Lance?
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Kevin, sorry we couldn't get it to go tonight. But those were great suggestions, and there was just no way around that one. So I'm glad we're going to get it right the first time. All right, moving to new business, I-1, the proposed 3/4 cent sales tax measure for November 5th, 2024 ballot.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. At this time, I'm going to ask our city clerk to post up a presentation that our city attorney is going to provide. And while he's doing that, just a quick background on how we got here tonight. Starting back in 2023, mid-year, there was a financial analysis done to look at the potential for additional tax revenue to fund much-needed services. Council direction was to, conduct some outreach with the community by conducting a survey, which was subsequently done in October of last year. And the formal survey results were presented to council in April. Following that presentation on the survey results, council directed staff to conduct a town hall, which in May, there was a town hall discussion here at the CPAC regarding potential revenue measures. Ultimately, on June 12th, in follow-up to the town hall, council directed staff to bring back a sales tax revenue measure. And so that's kind of a little bit of a summary background on how we got here tonight. It was, after much discussion, deliberation. And with that, our city attorney, Alex Mogg, is going to kind of walk you through the proposed measure that's in your packet tonight.
Thank you, David. Mike, if you can go to the next slide. And we can skip this. David provided the background on this. But so just some background on sales tax sort of basics. There is in the state, the default baseline is 7.25%. Of that amount, the city receives 1%. 1% goes to the county and the rest goes to the state. Local voters can enact additional increases. Voters in Sonoma County have previously approved and had already enacted 1.25% of increases. So that has been, library tax measures, the SMART measure, there's a transportation measure in that. So the current rate right now in Cloverdale is 8.5%. At the last election, voters approved Measure H, which will have a half-cent increase to fund fire services, additional fire services. And Cloverdale the Cloverdale Fire District gets a portion of that. And that goes into effect on October 1st. So it's already been approved and it will go into effect on October 1st. So that will raise Cloverdale's rate up to 9%. Next slide, please. So these are the current rates in Sonoma County, excluding the Measure H, because it's not yet in. So all of these you can picture being a half-cent higher. You'll see from this right now, Cloverdale is the lowest, along with Windsor, in the county, the only two jurisdictions that don't have their own. From this list, Sonoma and Sebastopol have both already voted their councils have voted to put half-cent sales tax measures on the ballot. So those may increase their sales tax potentially in November. Regardless of what happens here with those two, if Cloverdale's proposed three-quarter cent sales tax measure was approved, it would take us from the bottom to roughly sort of the middle. There'd be a couple cities above, a couple cities below, and we'd be roughly in the middle with a few other cities at that same rate. So next slide, please. So 3/4 cent would raise us to 9.75. There is a proposal on the ballot for a 1/4 cent countywide sales tax. The Our Kids, Our Future ballot measure. If that is enacted, that would be another 1/4 cent. So it would raise that up to 10% in Cloverdale, assuming that passed in the proposed measure. So the proposed measure would raise approximately 1.6 annually. That's the estimate from our tax consultants. Of course, some years it might be lower, some years and over time it will generally go up. Essential purchases like groceries and medicine are exempt from sales tax. That's just a matter of state law across the board. The sales tax is paid by anyone making purchases here. So that would be residents, but also people who pull off the freeway and stop at the gas station or shopping here generally. Next slide, please. So there are some accountability measures built into the ordinance, the proposed ordinance and measure. There's the annual audit. It's required to be included in the city's annual comprehensive audit. It's not a standalone audit. It's just that information is part of the city's comprehensive audit. There's annual reporting that will be required on how the money is spent, so the council can see exactly where this money is going and dictate where this money is going. And then there's a citizen oversight committee that's required to be approved. So it's a 3-person committee that will be appointed by the council. It has the same structure as the UUT ordinance. So it can be residents or business owners. It meets every 5th year, although we're starting it right away because that's when the UUT is, so just so they can be on the same cycle. It will start right away if the measure passes. And the council, we specifically put in there, the council could appoint one body to do both of these oversight roles. You could have 2 bodies, that's your right, but if you want to just have one body do both of these oversight roles, you could do that. And then you have some reporting requirements about reporting to the council and the public about the use of these funds. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed ballot measure language. I'll just read it out loud. To fund street and sidewalk repair and maintenance, improve public safety infrastructure, enhance park facilities and open spaces, make health, safety, security improvements, and for general government use, shall an ordinance be adopted establishing a 3-quarter sales tax until ended by voters, providing approximately $1.6 million annually in locally controlled funding that cannot be taken by the state or county with independent citizen oversight and required annual audits. So that's the ballot that will appear on the ballot, in the sample ballot, when people are actually voting, and check the box, push the little tab right there, yes or no. Next slide, please. So this is a general tax, which means it only requires 50% plus 1 of voters to be enacted, but it does require, and all sales tax actually require a 4/5 vote, a 2/3 vote of the city council, which, because we have 5 members, means 4 votes are necessary to place it on the ballot. Next slide, please. So the proposed election, a lot of it is boilerplate, very similar to the resolution we had putting the UGB measure on. So it calls the election, it requests the county to consolidate and run the election for us so we don't have to run the election. Establish argument and rebuttal deadlines, and we've just used what the county has used, so the same deadlines as that. And then it authorizes the mayor to write an argument in favor of the ballot measure. And then if anyone submits an argument opposed, it authorizes the mayor to write an argument rebutting that. And the mayor, up to 5 people can sign the argument, so it'd be up to the mayor who can sign this, including up to 1 additional council member. You can't go above that, or you run into Brown Act issues. Next slide, please. So tonight the recommendation is to adopt a resolution to place this on this measure on the ballot, and then the proposed ordinance, which is what will actually be adopted, is in the packet as well. That's what the voters will actually adopt. Most of that is just sort of boilerplate language from the state that they require. The CDTFA is the organization that manages and collects sales taxes and then gives it back to the city. And so it's mostly just boilerplate for them, except for the rates and then that language about our audits and our oversight at the end. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Thank you. You want to go first?
Oh, thank you. Just a couple of clarifying questions, Alex. the cities of Sebastopol and Sonoma, are they doing a district tax as well as we are?
Yeah, so they're doing, it's the same exact thing as what we're proposing. They have a different rate, and both of those jurisdictions already have taxes as well on the books, but it's the same.
Same type. And then backing up to the ballot initiative, maybe I just didn't hear it, but are we saying on that there will be community oversight in the expenditures of that revenue?
Yeah, so it does say, the ballot question does say independent citizen oversight. It's in the question, and then in the ordinance, it requires the council to appoint a three-member body to serve that role.
Yeah, and I really think it's important, and I know I'm going to be singing this tune all the way to the election, that these tax dollars will come directly to the city of Cloverdale. We will not be sharing that with the county or the state. We get to spend 100% of it, as opposed to the 1 cent we get on every dollar of sales tax that's collected now, which is amounts to nothing. So thank you, Alex.
I don't really have any questions, but I think this tax is important, and I think, it would have been great if we had it 5 years ago, but now, we need to play catch-up.
All right, I'll open it up to the public. Does anyone have any comments, questions, concerns, please?
I'm Cox again. In the purpose of the tax, it goes through roads and infrastructure and parks and such, and in the last I'm afraid that that'll end up going into the general fund where it may get lost and it won't go to the roads. So if there could be a priority list on that and have general government use at the bottom of that priority list, I would be happy.
So Alex, do you want to explain how that works to maintain the 50%?
Yeah, so in order to, if you dedicate the money from sales tax to a specific use and say legally it can't be used for any other purpose, no matter how broad that categories of uses are, it becomes a special tax that requires 2/3 approval. That language, general government use, is to establish it as a general tax. But the council, of course, can adopt spending lists of how that money is going to be spent and a policy of the city. And then, part of the reporting allows the council and the public to ensure that that is spent how the council has promised it would be spent.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Good evening, Daniel Frankston. I too share Bob Cox's concerns with regards to how the money is going to be spent, and I'm going to address that in a little bit. But I want to start with a 3/4 cent, and it seems like the die has already been cast on this. But as you know, the sales tax hits the most vulnerable people the hardest, and a 3/4 cent sales tax, raising it 3/4 cents, would put us beyond Healdsburg as far as the price. So our tax would be higher than Healdsburg. And every time I go to Healdsburg, I call it Cloverdale South, and the only thing I can think of is that's just going to perpetuate when you raise the taxes here. But most importantly, I want you to reconsider the 3/4 cent because it just isn't going to pass. A friend of mine, Evelyn, attended a coffee with the mayor where he indicated that, well, we've got some yeses and we got some maybe yeses and we get some undecideds, and we put those all together, it's more than 50%. But it's not. It's 40.5% who said yes to 3/4 cent. There's another 2.6 that were possible yeses, and there's 5.2 that were undecided. If you put all of those together, that's only 48.5%. I followed elections and measures long enough to realize that when it comes to a measure, undecideds tend to overwhelmingly vote against, and that's especially true when it comes to a tax measure. So my concern is that you're going to bite off more than the people will really be agreeable to. And for that reason, I would really urge you to cut that figure down to 0.5%. I think that's a more modest amount, It's a compromise amount. You'll recall we had the rent ordinance last year or beginning of this year, and two sides were far apart. What did? We came in the middle and found consensus that everybody was in favor of. 0.5% I would be in favor of. I have a suspicion that there's another member on the council that might be in favor of 0.5%, but would not vote for 3/4. And I really think that we need to get this passed because we desperately need the money. And I just don't want to see us here in October, in December saying, okay, now what do we do? So I would really encourage you to go and reduce that one figure from 3/4 to 0.5%. Now, getting back to what Bob had indicated, my real concern with regards to this is that this was brought up saying we need to spend half the money on the roads, 1/6 for public safety, we want to spend 1/6 for pedestrian safety and whatnot. And I'm confident that the council will follow through on their promises in that regard. But my concern is this. We have $1 million deficit every year. And from my perspective, unless the council can articulate a plan that is going to pay for that deficit without using these revenues, I just see the first 0.5% going to pay down the deficit. And I don't see the roads getting done, and I don't see the improvements being made. And that's really my concern. And I would love to be in a position to support it. But what I need in order to support that is an indication as to how the deficit's going to be paid down, and also a commitment from all of you to come back in 2 years with a bond measure to take care of the things that we need to, the police station repairs and the other things that are not being addressed herein. Thank you.
Let's see. Anyone else in the public want to make a comment?
My name's Ken Christofferson. I agree totally with our councilwoman that this probably should have been instituted years ago. My concern would be, I agree with him also, that this money would not be used for what I understand is we have $1.5 million deficit in our budget right now. That would have to be addressed, hopefully by tightening purse strings on other aspects. Also, our roads are in horrendous condition, and I'm not sure if they could be where roads could be guaranteed X percentage of the annual revenue coming in off this tax. And I know parks need money too, so maybe there could be, or there already is, a percentage breakdown of which needs would be addressed off of the sales tax. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else? All right, I'll bring it back up here. Councilmember Walter, you wanted to?
Thank you. You know, I hear what Bob Cox is saying. I hear what Daniel's saying, and Ken. You know, and it's important that the city council be held accountable to how we spend that money. And the way that I'm hoping the city council acts with the help of the oversight committee is to break that dollar amount into percentages and pass a resolution. Granted, it could be changed from year to year, but it sure would take a lot to change a resolution where we set up the percentages of how much would be for roads, how much for parks and recs, and how much for community services. And Daniel, I hear you loud and clear. 50% sure does look attractive, but I'm going for the 3/4. I can tell you right now that the price of things continue to rise. And what it costs us today to pave a street, to buy a playground set, or to buy food for the food pantry, it's going to escalate over the next couple of years, and we're going to be behind the 8 ball again. And that's why I'm really in favor of the 3/4. But accountability, council members need to have their feet held to the fire. We're coming up on an election this year. We possibly could have 2 new council members. I hope both the council members are reelected because we all sort of think in the same way. But you need to hold us accountable. that advisory committee, put your name in the hat, Daniel. You're more than welcome to see about joining it, but we need to be held accountable. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I may, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, we are not of the same mind on this issue. You know, over multiple meetings, the council's considered a wide range of possible ballot measures to raise revenue, including a potential sales tax measure. And make no mistake, we desperately need to address the structural deficit that's plagued the city for decades. You know, during these meetings, overwhelmingly, residents have acknowledged the situation once they, have heard the presentations from the various departments. And there's been support that we need to take action regarding this structural operating deficit and advocated, and they almost uniformly advocated for a lower sales tax rate. Most of the correspondence we received on this subject has expressed concerns about such a high rate at 3/4 cent and has advocated for a lower rate, while again acknowledging the desperate need to take action. So, as stated in the staff report, the standard sales tax rate in California is 7.25. At this amount, the city receives the standard 1% sales tax. Voters in Sonoma County have approved an additional tax of Measure H, which we heard earlier is going to be kicking in later in this year. Accordingly, the current sales tax in Cloverdale is currently 8.5. Unfortunately, in spite of the good start that we had with really good polling and really good discussions, the proposed 3/4 sales tax has arrived seemingly without any regard for inputs or additional discussion. Firstly, our sales tax will increase with the fire tax. Likely at our next council meeting, we're going to be receiving a presentation from Our Kids, Our Future. It's going to be on the same ballot as this measure. In addition to that, since the beginning, I have been bringing up that ACA 1 was making its way through the legislature, and in fact, it has passed, and it will be on the ballot alongside whatever tax measure we decide to put on as Proposition 5. When it passes, and the folks who are behind Proposition 5 have been working on this for years, and they have done the polling, and the only reason that they're putting it on a ballot is that they're very confident it's going to pass. It's going to allow us to put a bond initiative on our local balance for local infrastructure projects, only requiring 55%, just like the recent school bond from Cloverdale Unified. Prop 5 also requires initiatives with lower voter thresholds like this to have much stronger guardrails and oversights to ensure that those tax dollars are being invested properly in the community. The sales tax we're talking about tonight, at an unprecedentedly high 3/4 cent, is a general tax that goes straight into our general fund. It has none of these additional guardrails that are accounted for in Prop 5. And let's be clear, we desperately need to pass a sales tax, and I've supported this from the beginning, because we need an additional source of unrestricted funds for operations and staffing, the kind of money that you can't get from bonds, and it's rare from grants. Staffing and operations need a dependable source of general fund revenue. And a sales tax, just like our utility tax, it can do that for us. It can help us maintain our police staffing at City Hall, crucial parks, maintenance, operations staff. And that's an appropriate use of those funds. One of the arguments for this extremely high 3/4 cents is that a large portion of our sales tax revenue in Cloverdale comes from the sale of gasoline, and much of that comes from non-residents who are passing through. And this is going to make up for the shortfall from the California state gas tax, which is supposed to be supplementing our road maintenance. Well, the California state gas tax goes directly to fund those roads, indeed. And local sales tax is supposed to be how we're going to make up for the dwindling state gas tax to pay our roads. This makes no logical sense, because the California gas tax is failing to help us keep up with paving our roads because of the decreasing revenues from gasoline sales due to more efficient cars and the transition over to electric vehicles. So we're trying to make up for that decreasing revenue from the California gas tax with an additional local sales tax that's going to also decrease over time. All we're doing is we're hitching our sales tax revenue wagon to the same dying horse as the state gas tax. And this just doesn't make any fiscal sense for us. It's important for us to note also that Sebastopol City Council was also proposing a 3/4 cent sales tax, but they lowered it to a 1/2 cent at a recent meeting due to strong community opposition and concerns about how that money would be spent. And I think that that's an important thing for us to consider tonight. When we began this discussion, I knew I could support a 1/4 cent sales tax. And I would have been happy to compromise at a 1/2 cent. And that's what the polling showed the community would support. And that was the clear feedback that we received from correspondents and in public comment in multiple meetings. If we'd been smart about this, we would have been putting a more modest sales tax on the ballot and possibly a modest companion bond in anticipation of Prop 5 passing. I still think it's a good idea, though, to direct staff to get us ready to put a modest bond that should be, that is more appropriate for the type of spending we're telling folks we're going to spend the sales tax on. So tonight, I'm going to move that we amend the current resolution to a 1/2 cent sales tax, as supported by the polling and supported by almost all of the feedback in public meetings and correspondence. And if Prop 5 passes in November, I think we should advise staff to begin work on an infrastructure plan that prioritizes public safety, city operations facilities, street infrastructure improvements, park improvements, and other projects that are needed and residents which can support with a bond. And that is my motion.
Is there a second?
Fairness, can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
Ask you to hold off on the motion so I can hear from everyone else
Well,
first?
there's
or
a motion on the floor.
Then we
And-
can, let's see if we get a second. That's
And
totally
we
fine.
can-
We'll see if it dies.
Is there a second? All right, motion fails, did lack a second.
So I was hoping would have. Vice Mayor, do you have anything you want to say?
And we've gone over this, and we've talked to people, and I understand there's a lot of criticism towards it, but I do believe, and I'm in full support of 3/4 cent sales tax. You know, there's a lot to think about it. I'm also, and I think the reason I'm sticking with 3/4 cent, and to your point, Daniel, is we gave you our word that we're going to come up with in a couple of years here, and we're going to come up, we're going to pull up our sleeves, and we're going to find out what we're going to do and put this bond on there to address the other issues. I still hold true to that, but I do believe, and I think 3/4 cent sales tax is needed, and that's what I'm going to stick with tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I totally understand what Councilmember Bagby is saying. Unfortunately, I don't agree with that. I'm not looking at, I can't stop looking at the needs of Clovedale and turn around and worry about Measure N or anything else coming at us, because I know as a voter and as a Cloverdalian, I'm probably not going to support those at all. The ones that I'm going to support are the ones that directly affect Cloverdale, because we've been behind the 8 ball for a long time with the revenue streams that we have coming in. And I think if I was sitting in the seat, I would not cut my nose off to spite my face. If my fellow council members wanted 3/4 of a cent sales tax and I wanted a 1/2 cent, I would still support the 3/4 because I know the city needs it. And I think we reach a certain point where we're just being stubborn that we want it our way. So I'm in favor of the 3/4.
I'm definitely into the 3/4 cent sales tax, and I think it's kind of important that we come together as a team and that we all support it.
We've spent a lot of time talking about our roads, and we can rehash all of this. We know we have horrible roads in our town, and we have a affordable housing community. It's a lower income community. We all know that. I don't agree with Daniel that it affects the lowest income the most. I don't agree with that, because they don't spend as much as your middle income. They don't spend as much as your higher income. So it's a portion of their income that goes. When we talk about numbers between 1/2 and 3/4, it's such a minuscule amount to a single person. It's a big blow up. It's almost a farce when you talk about, you know, $17 to $19 a person is the difference that we're talking about per year. It's not a big difference. And you know, it's more of just wanting it your way of a half a cent versus the 3/4 cent. I agree that the polling showed right there at that 50% mark, like I talked about, to Evelyn and everyone else that was there. And boots on the ground versus a phone call at 7 o'clock at night are going to change that. They're going to see that this money affects us. It doesn't affect anyone else. This money goes to your parks. This money goes to your roads. This money goes to your public safety. That is the plan. A half a cent, you're not going to see a difference, and you're going to go, where'd my money go? And in 2 years, we'll be back here for $50,000 to put another one of these on the ballot and ask you for more money. And try and make it bleed a little slower is all we're doing. We're not actually doing anything. We had somebody on social media was giving me a bad time because, you know, how can Lakeport afford a water park and Cloverdale can't? Well, it's because they did a 1% sales tax and a 0.5% sales tax starting in 2016. And their money went directly towards that. You look at all these people, they have between 0.5% and 1% more sales tax that goes directly to them than us. And that's where the money comes from. That's the difference. And some of them are still raising them. We are way behind the 8 ball. We're just kind of trying to get caught up here is all we're doing. It's a half a cent. We'll see you in 2026 for another half a cent. That's how I look at it. And I'm trying to not have that happen. So that's why I have been supporting the 3/4 cent. Anyone else?
Well, I'd like to note that Hillsburg has a lot of nice, expensive hotels, and so they don't need to raise their sales tax as much as we do. But we're Cloverdale, and we don't have a bunch of nice, expensive hotels and expensive restaurants. So, I mean, that's the difference between Cloverdale and Hillsburg, and it's important to us that we get the money to fix our roads.
Kevin, approximately how much do we get out of TOT per year? Do you know? A rough number? Sorry? 500,000 total? And Hillsburg's over 2.2 million. That's the difference. And that goes directly to parks for them, as I understand it.
And I think they're more than that.
We have big financial differences, and so it's hard to compare apples to apples with these. If we want to have some roads fixed, and we want to have our infrastructure fixed, and be able to have parks, we need to do this. If not, I can guarantee you, in the next 2 years, the open spaces are not going to happen, and your parks are going to be minimized with what we can do to them. It just is what it is. And we are working on the structural deficit without this, Daniel, absolutely, 100%. David and I meet weekly, and we're looking in every direction with the budget that we can, but we are really tight right now, just to be honest. But we're trying to get every single drop out of that turnip. Anyone else? Okay. Do we have a motion for the resolution from anyone?
Approve.
Now you need a.
Unfortunately, got to read it by title.
Read by title only. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale calling and giving notice of the holding of an election on November 5th, 2024 to consider the City of Cloverdale measure to enact a 3/4 cent general transaction use tax, sales tax, and requesting that the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors consent to the consolidation of this election with the statewide general election to be held on the same date and direct the register of voters to conduct the election.
I second that motion.
Councilmember Bagby?
No.
Councilmember Morgenstern?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolter? Vice Mayor Wheeler?
Aye.
Mayor Land?
Aye. Passes 4-1 for a 4/5 vote.
Correct.
Alex, thank you for the presentation. Okay, we'll move on to J, subcommittee reports. Does anyone have anything that they would like to report? Seeing none, all subcommittee agendas and reports are online on the cloverdale.net. We got a letter of support, David, on the letters of legislative reports.
Correct. There's a letter in your packet in support of the 2024 Transit Intercity Rail Capital Program, or TIRCIP Cycle 7. This is a support letter for SMART's application for additional funding to bring SMART north to Healdsburg and ultimately Cloverdale.
Thank you. I might have missed it, Mayor. Did we go council member reports already? Item K?
Skip that? I'm sorry, we did. I skipped right over the top of it.
I submitted mine. I don't see it in the packet. Is it?
It got
Refresh?
published a little later, yeah.
Refresh, okay.
But it is online, available to the public.
From any council members report.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Michael. I'm sorry I missed that. Okay, we will move into the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of updates. As shared by Chief Parker earlier this evening, National Night Out is scheduled for Tuesday, August 6th. Hope to see it on the plaza in the community. On August 6th, or excuse me, Thursday, August 8th, there's a Mayor and Council Members Association meeting in Petaluma. If you haven't already, if you'd like to attend, please let our city clerk know, and he'll get you signed up. And last but not least, we received an update from our Sonoma County Director of Public Infrastructure, Johannes Hovertz, that the pedestrian bridge is scheduled to be installed starting next week, Monday through Friday. So hopefully you'll see that progress being made and that new pedestrian bridge being installed. There's been quite a bit of work that has taken place, and they're scheduled to install it next week. So great progress.
Are there plans for like a little soft opening or any kind of celebration with County of Sonoma?
I'll follow up and check. I think they're in the process of issuing a press release to provide more details about the pedestrian bridge, and I'll see if there's a date set and in terms of when the project's anticipated to be
Maybe the chamber
opened.
would be interested in organizing like a little bike parade or something like that. It would be really fun for us to, get folks together and rock and roll across the bridge.
It's a phenomenal idea. When I came on the council, Councilmember Brigham told me, I've been doing this for 21 years to get this in here. Do not let it die. And that first year, it became a reality. So I want to make sure that everyone knows, and it is a big deal for Cloverdale. That whole part of our community has been waiting for this for decades. So thank you for the update on that, David. Anything else?
Nothing further, Mayor. Thank you.
City Attorney report? Nothing. Council direction on any future agenda items? Anything from anyone? Seeing none? All right. Thank you all for being here. Meeting is adjourned at 7:23.